What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing a Madden 23 review. It's been a while since the game has come out, and I haven't given it a review yet. And there's a few reasons why. And the start of this video is going to be a talking head type of video. And there's, like I said, some good reasons for that. Because the state of Madden 23 is a very weird, interesting, odd place. Pick any type of descriptor you like for it. It's not a very easy game to evaluate, and I kind of want to talk about that a little bit whenever we start this video. If you do have the game, or if you're paying attention to the Madden community at all, you might know that there are a lot of ongoing issues with this game right now. A couple of those issues are franchise related. Actually, most of those issues are actually franchise related. And so that's why it's hard to make a review video that is going to be useful to you guys that are purchasing the game. I feel a little bit conflicted about how to actually review Madden 23 because I feel like gameplay wise, they've done a lot of positive things. And I feel like they've actually added some positive things to franchise mode. But the problem ultimately becomes that the game's not finished. And on top of that, I've been playing Madden for years and years and years, and I actually want to relate this to what's going on with the new Call of Duty right now, and how there's so many pro players and players that are so hardcore into Call of Duty that are very vocal about the game, and they find so many things wrong with the game shortly after just the release of the beta. And I don't want to be one of those people that is giving misinformation and pushing change that isn't necessarily warranted. So to break that down a little bit further, I feel like in all gaming communities, I feel like streamers and players that have influence tend to negatively influence the game for the general population and the general player base. I feel very strongly about that, and I've felt like that for Madden in the past. I feel like a lot of the MUT streamers and just streamers in general push things that are negative for the general population of the game, and I feel like that for so many other games, including what's going on with Call of Duty right now. And so that makes it hard for me to look at this game and give it a fair point of view, because as a user that's played this for a long time, that's played Madden since essentially the 90s, this is a game that is disappointing in many ways, and it has been disappointing in many ways. But to the general player, the player that is not as detailed into Madden, does not have a YouTube channel, does not spend as much time on the game, this might be a good game. And so it's almost like I have to do two separate reviews for two different sets of players. That's a conflict that is always going to be there. So I kind of wanted to get this talking portion of the video out of the way early so that you guys know where I'm coming from, so that you guys know my feelings on these things, and so that you know essentially where I'm approaching my reviews from and my opinions on the game. I don't want to be super negative about it because, in all honesty, and you'll see this as we get into a little bit of gameplay and stuff like that, this game is a pretty solid game. They've made some pretty solid additions to the game. It's just a problem that for us franchise players that want to play in a franchise with more than just yourself, it's kind of an unplayable game at this point, and we're well past release now. And before I go ahead and jump into the actual review and bits and pieces of the game, I want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that we are noticing so that you guys know what's going on if you are a franchise player or you do care about these things. So some of the issues that we're noticing with franchise, for example, are users being locked out completely from franchise mode. This has been not a problem that I've experienced in the past. Some people have said that they experienced this issue last year. I luckily did not with my leagues, but apparently it's a major issue now going across the community. And our 32-man user league has had trouble with 3 or 4 users being locked out of the franchise and not being able to get in. I've tried getting my secondary account in, and it's just giving us these issues where it's saying a player is in the franchise, but I can't invite them. They're not showing up in the franchise. I can't kick them. Can't do anything like that. So they're locked out, and there's nothing that you can do. You even can contact EA support, and they really don't help out. The next issue that we're seeing is games not saving. And this has happened to a lot of users in our franchises. And this issue's never been as bad that I can remember as it is right now, where we're having half the league have their games played and not saved and having to force wins and force losses for them. So we're at the point now where we've had 2 weeks into a franchise because we've had to restart a couple of times because of some of these other issues, and only half of our games are saving. So it's a major issue where you're seeing a lot of the franchise community, what is it, a month now into the game, haven't even actually started playing the game yet until these issues can get resolved. One issue that I've noticed over and over again is that every single time I go into a franchise, it doesn't matter what franchise it is, my depth chart resets. Transactions are resetting. Players that I signed 2 days ago are now out in free agency. Player edits aren't saving. So when you're building a roster, like we have to do with the RFL, the Relocation Football League, it's not saving your player edits, and you have to get kicked off the server every 30 minutes or something like that, and it's even quicker whenever it's a high traffic time of day. So if you're not up at 5 a.m., good luck getting player edits done. Otherwise, you're going to be getting kicked off the server after 3 edits. And the list doesn't stop there. The other issues that we've seen here are things like backwards advancing. So for some reason, leagues are being reset backwards from where they were. I mean, it's kind of the same thing of reversing transactions and reversing edits and things like that, those things not saving. It's like you could advance a couple days, a couple weeks within a franchise, and you get reset back to where you were. There's also been reports of the CPU auto drafting for certain users, not letting them make their draft picks, and are live executing the draft. It's still sometimes auto drafting for users, even if they're not on autopilot and things like that. And one last issue, and I'm sure there's more issues than this that I'm not even encapsulating, is that the league has reset entire years for some people. They'll go through an entire season, they'll play the Super Bowl, they'll do the offseason, do the draft, and it will reset the entire thing back to the beginning. And I've heard that report coming from multiple people. So these are issues that we're facing with franchise mode right now, and we've struggled to get a franchise started because of these issues. And so I don't want that to weigh down my review on the game too heavily, because I know that not everybody plays franchise mode. I know that a lot of the people that watch my channel watch franchise mode or play franchise mode content, and I don't want that to completely skew the view of the game, because while franchise mode right now, a month into the game, is completely unplayable because of all of these issues, the game itself, the gameplay, is actually headed in a positive direction. Now, there are some major negatives with the gameplay, some things that I personally will go over here in a moment, but I wanted you guys to understand where I'm coming from before we really get into the meat of the review. So real quick, to just make my final talking point on this before we transition to actually reviewing the game, let's go ahead and take a look at inviting a user here, for example. So here's my 32-man league. You guys will be able to see on the screen my 32 users, not technically 32 because some users are locked out of the franchise. If I wanted to go to invite my second file to this or my second account to this file, it's not going to let me, and I want to show you guys exactly what's going on with that. So if I move my screen out of the way here, you can see that nowhere on the screen is there the RFL Bulldogs account. You guys can go up and down the page, pause it, take a look at it. It's not here. It's not in the franchise. But if I go to invite that user who is on my friends list, which is just my secondary account, to the league, it's going to give me this warning. The online ID entered is already a member of the league. And this is what we're getting. It'll invite somebody to the league. They'll get in. They'll be able to see things within the franchise, and then it'll lock them out, and they're not actually allowed to get into the franchise. And this has happened to multiple users. We've had to have users create second accounts, things like that. We've had to try to work around it as a community, and we've just not been successful. It's just a very poor state of play for franchise mode right now. So when we actually then start to dive into the gameplay of this game and what's all involved, I'm going to look at this in a little bit of a different way than I normally do. I normally break it down into categories, but I'm just going to list off some of the positives, some of the negatives, and give you guys an overall determination of whether I feel you should grab the game or not if you have not already. And where I'm at with it is that in franchise mode specifically, they've made some nice additions. And you'll see on the screen right here, I'm taking a look at some player motivations, player tags for Tyler Lockett, for example. And these motivations should have been in the game for a long time. They're a fantastic step in the direction we need to go with franchise mode, where players actually have desires on where they want to be, whether they are a Super Bowl contender or whether they have a franchise quarterback on their team and things of that nature. There are a lot of different player tags, player motivations, things that are positively influencing the immersion within franchise mode. So it would be really nice to be able to utilize these things, but the game is a little bit broken right now. So if and when they do finally resolve the issues that are going on with franchise mode, I think we'll have a pretty fun experience with these additions, the additions to the draft classes and scouting. Some of the positive changes that they've made there are going to be pretty big for franchise mode and making it a more immersive and entertaining experience. And then where we really start to get into the meat of things beyond franchise mode is breaking down the other gameplay that you have within the game. And you can talk about Ultimate Team, we can talk about Face of the Franchise, things of that nature. And these are pretty similar to prior years between Face of the Franchise and Ultimate Team. So if you liked those experiences in past Maddens, you're probably going to like them again, especially with the new and improved gameplay. I feel like there's a lot to talk about gameplay-wise, and we'll hop into a game in a moment, but I've hopped into Ultimate Team, I've hopped into Face of the Franchise, and I don't see too much of an issue with those things. I wish that they would continue to build upon more of the single-player aspect of things, but Ultimate Team is the same experience that I've had with Ultimate Team for 10 years now. It's not changed too much. I mean, you get that experience of being able to build up your individualized fantasy-type team, and if you enjoy that type of thing, it's going to be fun for you. And I had a little bit of fun with it to start, but then I started playing teams that were tremendously better than me, and it didn't really matter the skill level between the two people because there's just users out there that are going to buy their team. So then it comes down to really diving into the actual gameplay here within Madden 23. And this is an area where there's some major positives and some major negatives that come along with things. The new tackling system, I feel like is very, very well added to the game. I think that it's a huge step in the right direction. The hit everything engine results in way better physics with tackles and those types of things that you just simply didn't have within the game. Now, from a animation perspective, this game is still very heavily over animated, in my opinion. You're going to see a lot of animations that just simply shouldn't be the case. You're going to see a lot of situations where defensive backs are jumping interceptions, jumping routes, and getting to balls that receivers just are not getting to. And one of the major problems here is that this game is coded for online head-to-head arcade-style gameplay. So you're inevitably going to see a lot more of that style of gameplay coming through no matter how you're trying to play the game. So if you're trying to play that stuff, that's perfectly fine, and I think that this game will be entertaining for you. From that aspect, when I've played people online, it's a pretty fun experience for the most part, but when I'm trying to play simulation and I'm trying to replicate an NFL experience, this game lacks in those areas where defensive backs are glitching to interceptions. The sliders this year are very broken. They're not working the way that they should be. When we talk about the interception slider, we try to reduce the number of interceptions because, like I said, I see too many of them, I feel like. And every user in our franchise, despite their skill level, we have some elite level players in there, is throwing 5-6 picks a game because defensive backs are just jumping every single route. And that's on 0 interceptions, and that is on reduced pass defense reaction timing. So there are some issues there with too many interceptions. Even though the pass coverage is improved this year, it feels like defenders actually play the way that defenders should play for the most part, aside from the interception side of things. And like I said, this game is built for head-to-head gameplay. It's built for you to click on to players and make the play yourself. So you'll see a lot of situations where defensive backs react to the football, but wide receivers simply do not. And that's been a major complaint for me for a long time, is that even if you click onto receivers sometimes, it's very difficult to get them to come back to the ball and attack the football in a way that is true to real-life NFL football and is comparative to the way that defensive backs are coded to play the ball. So there are some major negatives taking away from the gameplay this year, but I think if you could pick up this game and get it to a point where the sliders are working, that you could reduce interceptions a little bit and reduce the amount of animations that we see with defensive backs jumping interceptions, jumping routes and things like that and catching the ball, I think this game would be one of the best Madden gameplays that we've had in a long time. So in the end, my evaluation of this game is that they did take efforts to go in the right direction with both the gameplay and the game modes that we care about, or I care about at the very least, and that's great. And I think that this game could be a very good entry into the Madden series in all actuality if it wasn't plagued with so many of the issues that we're seeing right now with the glitches to franchise mode and the glitchy gameplay that we see from defensive backs and offensive linemen that should be very basic concepts. I mean, things like wide receivers attacking the football, defensive backs not being able to glitch 5 yards across for every interception even when it's not their assignment in man coverage and things like that, and offensive linemen just blocking absolutely nobody and letting defenders run free in your backfield. If those things could be cleaned up on a basic level and we could make the game modes that I want to play and a lot of users want to play playable by eliminating users being locked out of franchise mode and all those other issues that I talked about, I think that this game would be very, very good and I would give it a higher grade. So considering all of those things, I think that this game, as it stands right now, is not worth it to pick up until you've gotten verification that they have corrected these issues with the game. Once we get verification that they have corrected these issues and you see that they have put out patches to resolve the franchise issues, if that's what you care about, or resolved the gameplay issues that I've mentioned in this video, then I think this game is absolutely worth your money. For right now, I would just say hold off on buying this game if you have not already. And to be honest with you, if you have bought this game, it might be worth it to look for a refund until they've resolved these issues. There's just simply too many things wrong with this game, and I'm tired of major game developers putting out unfinished games. It's a very bad habit that the gaming world has gotten into now, and I don't think we should accept that as users. And from just that very basic perspective, that's where my recommendation is coming from, and that's avoiding trying to put any bias into it because I've been playing this game for a long time and I expect so much out of it. I think that as a general user, a general Madden player would come into this and might have some fun with it, but is probably going to struggle with a lot of the issues that I mentioned because it is impeding the fun aspects of this game that they have gotten right about it. So overall, I would give this game a grade in the 70s, kind of a C grade, where it has the potential to be up there in the high 80s. So I hope that this helped somebody out there, or I hope that you guys found this information useful or entertaining in some way. If you did, leave a like on the video, subscribe down below for more content, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.